Wednesday is here. How are we all doing out there? Who has already had a kick-ass Wednesday morning? Anybody already off to a good start today? Forget about yesterday. I'm talking about you are already rocking and rolling today. Molly, all right. What do you got, Molly? Was that just a hand? That was just a yes, or you want to share something?
I'll go ahead. Well, Wednesday mornings I teach a very early yoga class at 5:15. So I feel like at this point I've already had a full day. So it's basically lunch as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I had, for whatever reason, a bunch of Aerosmith in my random mix at the gym this morning. So oftentimes my gym routine can affect what you guys get to hear on this morning call. So I'm ready to go. That is for sure. Anybody else? How about just a win from yesterday? Something positive going on. As a whole, I feel like this group, we just need to get better with our gratitude. I throw out, I don't know if I've thrown this podcast out. I'm really loving Modern Wisdom. I think the guy's name is Chris Williamson, British accent. I know that always gets the women. I think you guys would enjoy this gentleman, but he has a ton of great guests on his podcast. And one of the recent ones I was listening to is just how good of a time we are living. We got so much good stuff going on. Most of us don't have to worry about a roof or food or um, dying tomorrow because of some wild animal or anything like that. And just trying to slow it down and really appreciate everything that is 2024 and all the conveniences that we have, and put aside things that we think are bothering us. Trying to make decisions on stuff that's going to matter in 50 years, not in 50 minutes. I find myself, I can lose my emotions on something that really just matters for today, and it'll never be part of the big picture. This isn't from Chris, but today I did want to share with you Solomon's paradox. I had never heard of this. I've never heard a lot of these paradoxes. I don't know if they just don't teach this stuff or what, but anybody heard of Solomon's paradox? So this is a psychological, I guess, I don't know if we have too many psychology majors, but I kind of, in my naivete in college, kind of laughed at people that were psychology majors. I'm like, what are you ever going to do with that? And now I realize human nature is such an important part of getting through life. And there's all these cool phenomenon that all these great doctors have done the research on. This one's really interesting. So it is named after King Solomon, who is famous for his wisdom and giving great advice to the people that were surrounded by him. But when it came to his own life, he really, really struggled with good decisions and was not a role model to society. And so psychologists Grossman and Cross, I guess, apparently coined this term in the early 2010-ish range, after conducting some studies that kind of revealed that we really struggle with human reasoning on ourselves. It's easy when we can be objective and we're looking at somebody else's situation, but when we're in the thick of it and the emotions are going and our biases are kicking in, maybe we have some personal attachments and our judgment can be clouded. And if any of you guys have bought your own piece of real estate while you are already an agent, I think you notice this. It's very easy when your clients are getting emotional and maybe irrational in a deal, and you're trying to get them to calm down and stay calm, no big deal. But when it's your own deal, you're in the heat of the moment and you can find your emotions kind of running. So the few reasons that they listed is just the distance from somebody else, right? We can emotionally detach. That gives us some clarity. Objectivity. So it's just easier to consider all sides of an issue when it's not your issue. And perspective. Much easier to just kind of step back, 30,000 foot view, when it's not your deal, your child, your relationship. Um, but it's just interesting how difficult it really is when it's yours. When we look at giving advice to others around us, and we do a little bit of that on this morning call of things and ways that we can shape our lives to be better. And then I find myself right in the thick of things and can't follow some advice that I maybe gave that morning on a morning call. It's pretty amazing how the human body just can take over emotions and um, being able to slow it down. And I think that is part of um, the antidote to this, which is not just trying to do a million things, not trying to get every single task done, not trying to conquer the world every day, trying to do a few things, slowing it down. If we get a few things done today, we've had a good day, and not trying to do every single little thing. The list is endless, so that when something does come up, we don't have 18 other things. We've got some time to think it through, to go to 30,000, to talk to somebody else about it. Trying to do better. And I am noticing as I'm slowing down, I think I handle those situations a little bit better. So being comfortable with doing nothing is something I've, until maybe this year, not been able to be comfortable with in my own body, of like, didn't accomplish enough today. And I think a lot of people, maybe not everybody on the call, but I think a lot of people that get into this, they are drivers, they are doers, they are go-getters. And so I guess the messaging today is just being able to slow it down and giving yourself a break if you didn't get 30 things done today and you only got 15. Because I think if we can slow it down a little bit, when the real big decisions come along, or the tough situations, I think we can handle them a little bit better. So that's what I had this morning. Anybody have any thoughts or comments, or struggling with it yourselves? Love to hear some feedback. Gilly.
To your point where you say that you've never been comfortable doing nothing, I struggle with that myself. I feel like if I sit on the couch, I'm not engaging in something, whether it's usually work related or house or kids or something. Like, it's very hard for me to decompress and just be. Luckily with my yoga teacher training that I've done, I recognize it and I'm conscious about it. So if I do notice myself like spiraling and never stopping, I take myself to the ground. I do some stretching, and it usually helps just to kind of calm my nervous system down. When I'm in the car, I just do these breathing exercises, long exhalations and holds and things like that, just to kind of wire me down, because I am very ADHD and hyper. So it's challenging for me, like you said, just to kind of just to be in your own skin and be happy that you're there, and not have to be like, oh, I have to do this, and the next thing.
All right, one person making me feel normal. Thank you, Keely.
Anytime.
Anybody else? Martin.
My issue is I can't, like, part of this is what you're saying, but the other part is I can't shut my brain off. Like people can just go to the beach and just sit there and do nothing for hours on end. Like, we'll go to the beach and I'm done in 10 minutes because like I just can't. I don't know. I just can't shut my head off. I always have like 30 million things going through my head.
I'm the same way. The beach doesn't do it for me. I'm getting better, I will say. Maybe I can make it 15 minutes instead of 10 now, Martin. But no, I think it's just I'm constantly trying to take information. I'm constantly trying to do the personal growth. It's like, I was listening to this Modern Wisdom podcast the other day on personal growth, and it's just as bad of a rabbit hole as anything else. Like, it's never going to be a perfect version of myself, and I'm just constantly, whether it's my health or it's my education or it's my leadership or it's my sales technique, like just trying to get better at every single little thing. And, just trying to take a breath and go, Like, hey, made it pretty darn far. If we don't improve today, it's not the end of the world. If we're not doing something today, I mean, I'm even just trying to get to the point where I couldn't go for a walk without listening to a podcast to try and get better during the walk, and just trying to go, just go for the walk. It doesn't have to be, we're doing multiple things, right? And unfortunately, I think this connected world that we're in, we can easily get that dopamine hit. We can easily find something to get distracted with. And I think it's the reverse that's really going to help, which is just do nothing. And I'm trying to find more ways of just being okay with that. Jen.
I was going to say, I think it has a lot to do with the job that we're in too, because you don't get to stop, and I mean, it's important to make time to stop, but I feel that when I do that, even if I feel like I've done everything now, I can just take a breath and maybe go somewhere for a couple hours with the kids, but then I'll get a phone call from, somebody, an agent or something, where I feel like, oh my God, did I miss something? And then it makes me feel bad for even taking a break, you know? And I was hearing my actually a few people talk about having the Sunday scaries, oh, I got to go back to work tomorrow. And I thought to myself, I have not experienced that since I worked a 9 to 5. And I thought, I mean, it's good that I haven't experienced that, but it also means that I'm working all the time, you know? So I think that it's the business that we're in. That's probably the most challenging thing.
Yeah, look, it's not easy, especially when you're getting started and you're like, you have no sales, you have no money coming in, and you're like, I can't, I got to get every lead, and I got to talk to everybody, and I got to show every house. And yeah, I mean, it is, those first few years are a grind if you're going to make it. And unfortunately, I just don't think you can really have, if you're trying to get in and really make it, I haven't seen somebody do it with a work-life balance. There's going to have to be unbalance for a year or two to get started in this industry. Then I think, you can start to put some pieces into play with, what, I'm not going to answer that phone, and they can wait. And if I lose that client, I lose that client. If they're really going to, walk away from me and my abilities because I didn't pick up the phone and get back to them, and then I'm okay with that. Right. And I'm going to lose that client, but it's just tough to do that early on. And so I think this is one of those examples. If you've got an experienced agent, saying, oh yeah, you got to have work-life balance. It's like, no, in your first couple of years, I don't think you can. There's not going to be a work-life balance if you want to make it. So it's a great point, Jen. This industry will really run you like that. So anybody else? Just out of curiosity, I mean, raise of hands. How many people have that feeling that you got to keep going? You can't just stop. I got to be doing something all the time. I'm just curious. I think it's like that's what our industry attracts, right? Yeah, I'd say, yeah, 90% of the people on the call who just can't stop. So hopefully, if we can just talk about this stuff a little bit more, I am sure that you can change. I know in 2024, I have changed dramatically on this topic. I have slowed way down, and I still feel like I'm making progress. We're accomplishing things. Brokerage is going in a direction that I'm happy with. We've got great people between our leadership team and our agents, so we're attracting like-minded people. I think this is just something as a group. I mean, I don't know if there's somebody that doesn't have their hand up. As a group, I think we just got to work on this thing because I'm working hard at it, and I think it is making a difference. Sleeping a little bit better, stuff not bothering me maybe as much as it normally would. So let's just continue to talk about it. And know that I think that mantra of, hey, if you're in the first couple of years, this is going to be tough. But once you're through those first couple of years, if you organize your life the right way, you got your CRM the right way, I think we can get some more balance. Anybody else want to talk on this topic before we just open it up for some roundtable? All right. Well, I appreciate the transparency this morning, and hopefully we can be open about this stuff and improve our lives because we're willing to put these topics on the table and talk through them. Who's got a real estate scenario to throw out that we can all learn from? Got Linda, lingering hand, or do you have something?
Sorry, I'll take my hand down. Sorry.
No worries. I had something come across my. Oh, go ahead, Caroline.
Just something small. I had an inspection on one of my listings yesterday, and I always check in right after, see if there's anything crazy that came up. The agent mentioned the electrical panel, a couple things like aluminum wiring, double taps, whatever. I shared that with my seller, and of course they started freaking out. I had to bring them back down to reality, and I'm like, listen, this is just what he's saying. Let's cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's see what he actually sends us over, because they're like, oh, we're going to call our electrician. I'm like, you're not going to do anything. Like, sit down on your hands and relax. Like, let's see what they actually send us for a request, and then we can go from there, because it's not even necessarily something you're going to do. Maybe you are, but like sometimes, sellers will freak out, but you have to bring them back. I'm glad that's all that came up. I was a little nervous. But yeah, plus I was at the Big E, and I'm like, I'm not dealing with this right now. Like, this is
So
something.
I want to talk through this a little bit. So this is just your conversation with the buyer's agent post-inspection prior to an inspection repair request actually
Right
coming
after
over.
they were done.
Yep.
I'm like, how did it go? Anything crazy come up that we should have like, give me a heads up here. And
Yep.
he's like, no, it went well, other than, XYZ. I'm like, okay. So I let my clients know this is what it could, because they wanted that feedback. They asked, please let us know if he says anything. So I'm not going to hide that, but I'm like,
Right.
this is what was said, but we do not need to discuss this right now or deal with it until he sends me a formal request and we can look at it. Because they started asking me questions. I'm like, listen, I don't have an inspection report in front of me. When they send us the pertinent parts of the inspection report and the request, then we can discuss it. But right now, like, we're putting too much energy into this. Like, let's cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, I think the best way to handle it is the way that you're handling it, which is, I think the sellers always want to kind of know, hey, anything major? Hey, you know what? It seemed like there might have been a couple of issues with the electrical and maybe something with the heating system. Not really sure if it's going to be enough where they're going to want to submit a repair request. So for now, let's not worry about anything, and let's wait and see what they officially request. Because I've had that same exact situation where the buyer's agent goes, oh yeah, it's not really that big of a deal, right? And literally no repair request, or hey, not really that big of a deal, I don't think there's much, and it's 18 things on the repair request. It's literally it could be all ends of the spectrum. So you really don't know, because I think a lot of times the agent really doesn't realize they don't have a good enough connection with the client or experience with this client where they know, what's going to happen. The client could go, yeah, this doesn't seem like a big idea. They tell dad, yep, just had the inspection. Oh, send me over the report. Oh my God, you got this is wrong and this is wrong. And all of a sudden it went from no big deal to there's 18 things on the repair request. So that's the reality. It can be all ends of the spectrum. And so getting your clients all worked up, we really got to temper those emotions, kind of like we talked about this morning of, hey, you know what? Seemed like there might have been a couple of things, but let's just wait. And give that story. Because I've seen some clients not ask for anything. And I've seen some where it seemed like inspections were fine. And all of a sudden we got a laundry list. So let's just see.
And I think on the opposite side of that, sometimes sellers will go rogue. As soon as you tell them something, they'll start making phone calls, get, people over there and start doing things for no reason, or, doing the wrong thing, not even something that was requested, spending unnecessary money. So yes, give them a heads up, but also bring them back down to reality.
Anybody else want to share anything or a strategy that you're using or a situation that came up with regards to how these conversations went, what you said to your seller, what you shouldn't have said to your seller? Anybody got a good share on this more recent inspection? This is a really good concept that we got to get through, because these are the critical conversations that are the difference between a really good agent who can keep a deal together and one who does not have control and loses a deal at inspections. Anybody think of anything else that they've said to their seller or had come up? Go ahead, Pat.
I'm actually dealing with it on the other side. So I have this I talked about it like a week and a half ago when I first got a deal on there, but it's like a guy and his cousin is keeps inserting himself in the deal. So he keeps, oh, I got to bring my cousin in. First he was a wholesaler and I was going to owe him half of my commission, which I said no. And then now we got inspection done, and the two boilers weren't working the day of inspection. One of them didn't have water in it, and the other one had a pilot light out, so we couldn't inspect it. So he's like, I need 40 grand. His friend gets on, hey, I got my cousin here. He wants to talk to you. So he's like, if we can't get these boilers working, then I'm going to need $40,000 off the transaction. And I'm like, bud, they said they would bring in somebody to service the furnaces. They won't replace them. They're not going to give you new boilers, but they said they'd bring somebody in, make sure both of them are in good working order by closing. So I explained it all to the client. And then he gets his cousin on the line, and his cousin, it's very similar to what you were talking about a minute ago with trying to control your emotions. But his cousin gets on the line and he starts talking. I let him talk for about a minute and a half straight. Finally, I started to kind of try to cut him off because I had just had this whole conversation with the other guy. We had already sent the repair request over to the other side. There was 4 or 5 things on it. Most of them are minuscule. He wants the toilet is running. He wants a new chain put in the toilet. And I'm like, we shouldn't be asking for a chain for a toilet. It's a $5 fix, man. And he's just like, I need it. So I'm like, all right, I'll put it in. But his friend gets on, he talked for a minute and a half. I tried to cut him off to be like, hey, listen, we've already discussed all this. We sent the repair request over to the other side, and he cut me off and said, let me finish. And so then I let him talk for another minute and a half. I wanted to hang up on him, but I let him talk for another minute and a half. And finally he stopped talking. And I said, are you done? Is it my turn now? And he said, yep. And then I explained it to him calmly, like, listen, we've already gone through all this. We've sent the repair request over. Everything you're asking for is in the repair request. We're waiting for the other side to respond back to us. Then I said they could come back and say, no, we're not going to do any of it. Or they could come back and say, we'll do all of it. I don't know until we hear back from the other side. So this back and forth we're having, I can't advise you. Well, I want money off then. I don't know if they're going to fix it yet. We can't ask for money off if we don't even know if they're going to fix the problem yet. You have to explain it. It's just very frustrating, I guess, in a sense that we've all had it where the dad or the brother or the uncle or somebody keeps inserting themselves in the deal, and they're not even buying the house, but they keep giving their opinion and throwing the train off track, And so, like you're talking about, we have to be the quarterback all the time, right? We have to get it back on the track and make sure we're all moving forward to try to make sure everything's moving smoothly to the finish line, right? So I guess the same thing on the buy side as you guys are dealing with on the sell side. You just have to be able to explain your side calmly and not escalate it, de-escalate it. That's really what you got to do, right?
Yeah, both sides of these transactions for sure. Jen, what do you got?
Oh, I was just going to say, I have a buyer who had an inspection and the seller was there. And he said, listen, I just want you to know, I'm not in any rush. I know you have to find suitable housing. I mean, you could take as long as you want. And she said, oh, that's great. Thank you. And they ended up sending over a request for an extension. And he got mad and he said, listen, this is ridiculous. He's basically looking for a credit. So I feel like, I don't know, like you said, that they need to kind of just express themselves. And even what Pat's going through, I guess in this situation, and I guess in that situation too, like Pat's situation, just let him know I'm going to do everything I can to get you these things, right? This credit or whatever this is. But we just have to hang tight and wait and hear and see what happens. And I feel like just letting them speak, even with this cousin, I know you're looking out for your cousin, or if it was a grandpa or dad or whoever's there with the buyer, I know you're looking out for them. I want you to know I'm looking out for them too. And I put this request out there. It's almost like, as much as you want to say whatever it is to support what you have to say or to respond, I feel like sometimes they just don't hear you, and maybe their emotions are just worked up and they're just not ready to, and I don't know. But I feel like you just kind of never know what, like, my guy just did a 180,
Right. I
It
think
was
I think
shocking.
when you're going into these, I think one of the things that can help us, not going to work with every client, is just making sure that the client understands who has the leverage, right? So when you've got, you've been an agent in different markets, the conversation with the buyer could go, hey, look, I've had markets where I asked for 20 things, including the chain getting fixed in the toilet, and we got all of them done because the buyer had, or the seller had been on the market for 6 months with no offers, right? But I've also had other ones where we waived inspection to get offer accepted, right? Kind of my take on where we're at this market with this property, right, is we're probably somewhere around wherever the heck we are, right? Maybe the property it was first weekend on market, there's 18 offers, who knows? Because even in a slower market, you can have a particular property it's really got a lot of interest. So I think if we can have that kind of a conversation with the buyer, making sure that they understand that, hey, because they're going to tell you, oh, my friend bought a house and they fixed everything. Well, when was that? What market was that in? What town was that in? How many days on market was that property? Because all of those things make a difference on what you can get as a buyer's agent out of that seller, right? And they matter dramatically, right? It's not just the personality of that seller that says, no, I'm not doing anything, right? Because that's a part of it. Part of it is the listing agent and them just trying to go to battle for their client. I would say one of probably the biggest driving factors about how many things you're going to be able to get on that repair request is just the current market conditions. Right? We're going to have a conversation with the listing agent. Hey, I get it. We're asking for 15 things, but I know you've been on the market for 6 months and you don't have any offers. So let's just try and put this thing together. If you can get me 13 of these things, we can probably get ourselves a deal. Go ahead, Pat.
I think to Jen's point, the other part of it is it's happening in real time. So it's similar to you not being able to sit and relax on the couch, right? These people have the report. We put the repair request together. We sent it over. We're waiting for the other side to get back to us. But in real time, in their mind, they're like, if we don't get these things, I'm out. I'm out of the deal. You know what I mean? Like, they just can't. There's no patience there. They don't understand. And so there's a difference between being in real time and not. So this guy's calling me as soon as I submit the repair to the other side, like, what'd they say? I'm like, they didn't say anything yet. We just have to wait it out. We have to see. They may be willing to do all the repairs. Maybe they're not willing to do the repairs. If they're not willing to do the repairs, then maybe we go after a credit. But like, we can't make any of those decisions right now because we don't know where they're at. So you just have to be patient. I promise you, I will get back to you as soon as they get back to me. And we'll figure out what the next move is at that point. And that was what kind of, I think, calmed them down a little bit. And eventually she got back to me about 2 hours later. They did, I think, 4 out of the 6 things. One of the things was, I told him straight out, the windows were old. He was like, I want all the windows replaced. Like, they're not going to replace every window in the house, but like, I'll ask for it. But, that's probably the one that I wouldn't get my hopes up about, is what I told him. But yeah, they came back. They said we do everything else. Everything, we're good. We're going to do everything else. So then he's like, well, they're going to do everything else now? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, should we ask for 10 grand off? And I'm like, no, they're going to fix everything. We can't ask for money if they're going to fix everything. Like, that's not how that works. Oh, well, there was trash underneath the porch in the back. So is that going to be gone by closing? Like, yeah, but has nothing to do with the repair request. That has to do with being broom swept condition. We'll check it when we get there, towards the closing. So it's just, he doesn't understand the process. His cousin's probably in his ear constantly telling him what to do. And in real time, he's just nervous and freaking out, So it's just, you got to set those expectations and keep them in the deal, I guess, is the easiest way to put it.
Yep. You know, one of the things that can help a lot of times, if you're on the buy side, the listing agent might not be as well connected in the community as you might be, right? So it could be that you got a seller that's not that well connected and a listing agent that's not that well connected. And what I mean by well connected is, can they get a roofer out there to get us an estimate to do that repair? Can they get an electrician out to get us a reasonable number? Can they get a plumber, a gas fitter, an HVAC guy, right? So if you can help and have the conversation with the listing agent, hey, I noticed you don't do that much in this marketplace, or this is outside your wheelhouse or the market that you serve the most, or whatever the case might be. Do you have contractor connections? Because I got a couple of people that we could probably get out there. And I just want to make sure that you don't think it's a $5,000 fix, and I've got somebody that we could probably get this done for $1,500. Because I think sometimes they are nervous on what the real cost is going to be, and they don't even know. They just see a list of 10 items. So trying to get the listing agent to get the seller to everybody just calm down a little bit. I know there's a lot on here. Do you, Mr. Listing Agent, Mrs. Listing Agent, do you have the right people? Does your seller have the right people to get the estimates? Or do you think I might be able to help you there? Right? Because I really want to keep this deal together. So even on the buy side, those are the types of things that a good agent is doing to try and keep deals together. All right, we are a little over. Anybody have any final thoughts on this, or just a comment to add on something that you've done in these scenarios to help with these conversations? This stuff is really, really important. We are, I don't know, I would say a third of the deals that fall apart are repair requests, a third are mortgage, and a third are just random stuff. So if you want to be an agent that's not losing deals, this is important to be able to work through these things. So one of the great shares that I would love to see you guys come into this call with is, hey, I just had this come up on an inspection. Here's how we got it resolved. Right? If you've got some unique scenarios that are happening on your deals, because I promise you it's going to help somebody else on how to resolve some of these things. And I'd love for you guys to be, keeping 90 to 95% of your deals together with the right strategies, techniques, having a resource to go to ask some questions of, hey, I got this going on. How do we keep this thing together? Great call today, guys. Appreciate all the transparency, all the shares, a lot of back and forth. Have yourselves an awesome Wednesday, and we will see you again tomorrow morning. Take care.
Thank you.